It's the weekend recap. Monday, open for everybody to enjoy this podcast. Welcome in section 1904. Thanks for being with us. As mentioned, Mondays are always free. We do appreciate all the support that we've received thus far from people who are subscribing. I will tell you a great way to start your work week. Right there in the inbox, 7:28 this morning, my front row seat ticket. John Gennaro putting it together, making sure that you have all of the information. If you took your Sunday off and just decided that you were going to go shoot bows and arrows in Balboa Park, well, John was thinking of you. He has your weekend recap for you there in written word, and now we have it in spoken word. John, hope you had a good weekend. How's the family doing? Everybody fine?
Everyone is getting back to full health. Daughter is back at school. Wife is back at work. I think each one of us has like a little bit of a lingering cough, but we've started testing negative. We can breathe. I jumped out of bed this morning just because I could breathe through my nose. My head didn't hurt anymore. So I feel like we have fully conquered COVID in this household. We are all healthy and ready to tackle the week.
All right. Well, that is really, really good news since you spent, I want to say, the entire week last week testing positive for COVID. So that is really good news. Daughter back in school, family back up and running, and off you go. And now you won't have to worry about this, hopefully, fingers crossed, for many, many more months that you won't have to worry about this because now you've got a little built-in immunity. So good for you guys.
Yeah, I've actually been thinking about how this couldn't really be timed any better for me because on Saturday I get on a plane and I go to Florida for a few days. And I was like, well, if I was concerned about catching COVID on this flight or in Florida, I don't really have to be because my immune system is going to be as powerful as it could possibly be against COVID in about 4 or 5 days when I do that.
All right. Well, I do appreciate it, John. It's one of the first things that I saw this morning was the front row seat. This is something that is daily delivered right there into your inbox. John recapped the weekend, whether it was the Padres, whether it was SDFC, whether it was a little bit of Champions League, NBA Finals. I don't know that we're going to get to all of that here. And just for those that are listening, don't worry. The COVID hasn't finally made its way into my body. I do have a little bit of a throat thing going on Saturday night in a long day of broadcasting and a lot of play-by-play. I don't have a sore throat. It just sounds like it's a little tickle off. Not tickle, that's the wrong word. That suggests bad things are hanging around the corner. But did have the broadcast with Warren Barton on Saturday night. So that's a lot of words. That's a lot of things that are being said. Oftentimes I have no idea really what it is that I'm saying, but had a broadcast and then got out and about for a little bit on Sunday. So I think after a couple of lozenges, I will be back up and running here. It was an exciting weekend in sports, I thought. I will just say right out of the gate, just to not put this off onto the back burner, I will say heading into the weekend, I thought it was this is not something that I gave John a heads up on that I was going to bring up, especially this early in the podcast. But I will say my Friday night, like a lot of other people's Friday nights, the weekend really, I thought, took a turn for the worse with some of the images that we all saw in South Park. And I do want to just bring it up here right out of the gate.
Sure. Not
that we're going to turn this into a full-blown politics podcast. We might do that at some point. You know, I was made aware of what was going on in South Park because a friend and former colleague of mine, Nate Abarrea, who lives in South Park, was there and sent me a video of himself standing on this corner outside of a restaurant I've been to many times called Buena Forqueta. And he was there, and I did not realize what it was that was happening. And then slowly, more and more of these videos started popping in as there was a raid on this restaurant at this corner in South Park, which is, you know, just like a peaceful, really, really peaceful corner intersection in one of the more chill neighborhoods in San Diego. And I think that's why a lot of people are struggling to process exactly what it was that was happening at this intersection. Not that ICE raids haven't been happening all across the county, all across the country for, you know, however long they've been happening. And many people have many thoughts about that as well. But like, I feel like this has struck a chord with so many people because of this intersection, because of this neighborhood. I know Buena Forqueta, as we're recording here on a Monday, has decided it is not going to open today. It is not going to open on Tuesday. And that's unfortunate amongst many unfortunate things. But I don't mind telling you, even sitting here on Monday morning with tons of sports to talk about, that is, that is not far from my stream of consciousness. That those images that we saw at that intersection, I cannot believe that this is how we are living, that this is how life is unfolding. And I don't know what's to come here for the people who were taken away from this restaurant. I don't know all the details. I'm not going to pretend like I do. But I just know that really got the weekend off for me as a terrible tone setter for the weekend on what should have been really an exciting weekend for sports, whether it was local, nationally, or internationally. So I do want to acknowledge that I think a lot, and I've thought a lot about the people who live there in South Park, who were there, who were in that intersection. And like many of you, I'm troubled by some of these images that we saw from Friday afternoon.
Same. I've seen several different videos from this, I'm going to call it skirmish between ICE and I imagine residents of South Park, not just the restaurant goers, showing up with like flashbangs and in military gear. Like, luckily no one got intimidated. And I'm with you. Like it hung a cloud over the weekend. I did see, I think it was yesterday, that there was a kind of a protest rally march thing down 30th Street in South Park, where they had a big banner in the front that said "Get ICE out of California," and they were doing lots of chants: "Get ICE out of California, ICE out of San Diego." So kudos to that community for standing up and standing up for what's right and standing against what's wrong. And it just goes to show you, like, this is happening. It's happening. Whether or not you want to acknowledge it, it's happening. And it doesn't feel real and it sucks, but I appreciate that the response to it is not to turn a blind eye or be like, oh, how horrible for them, but to say, like, this is happening to us as a community, and us as a community can do something about it. I also saw a video that I almost sent to you this morning or last night, where someone was in their car on the 805 and ICE was like chasing them, and they got to the Imperial Ave exit on the 805 going south, which I'm assuming is the last exit. Is that the last exit?
Is it Imperial or San Ysidro Boulevard? I'm not sure exactly.
So I think it was on the Imperial Ave exit, which I assumed was the last one, but could be the second to last one. And they basically got run off the road by these like ICE guys in these black SUVs. They ran them off the road, and then on the shoulder, people had video of them on the shoulder, getting cuffed by ICE and thrown in the back of these SUVs. And it's like, that person was probably driving to Mexico. They were probably like, I'm just going to get the hell out of here because these guys are chasing me. And they get run off the road and thrown in cuffs and probably put on a plane and sent to Guantanamo Bay. And yeah, it's bad. Luckily for you and I, they haven't started hunting white men who were born in this country yet. I imagine it could be coming at some point, but that doesn't mean that we have to turn a blind eye and ignore the fact that a lot of our friends and members of our community are currently being hunted by members of the government and the administration. And that is terrifying and shitty. It's both.
Yeah, terrifying and shitty. Yeah. Bad combination. You don't want to be terrifying and shitty. Nope. It's debatable whether you want to be either one of those. I just think the images of the response from people on behalf of the government is it just ain't it, man. Like it is just not it. You will not convince me. I think that there's obviously plenty of conversation about people who are documented, undocumented. Where we live is a lot different. Where we live is a lot different. This is a binational region. It's one of the many reasons why I've chosen to stay here, live here, even geographically exactly where I am. My wife and I wanted to be closer to Mexico, because of how much time we spent there. We got married there. We wanted to be able to see it from our house. We wanted to live in South Bay to really immerse ourselves in it. But that's getting sidetracked here from what it was that we saw on Friday afternoon. I do not understand how anybody could sit and say, no matter how you feel about immigration, no matter how you feel about documented, undocumented, I don't know how anybody could go, yeah, that seemed like it was an appropriate way to carry out whatever it was that was being carried out here in this restaurant, and I know a lot of the details are still sort of dripping out about who was taken and who wasn't taken and why it might have happened. I don't want to get into any of that. I really don't want to get involved in any of that because I don't know what to believe.
Yeah.
When you just go scrolling through social media, I mean, it's like, it's like trying to track down exactly what it was that happened with these supporters groups at SDFC. I don't know. I mean, I'm just there to call the game. I'm just telling you, like seeing the images of those people in like full military gear to go after a couple of employees at restaurants, it's going to take a lot to ever convince me that is appropriate. I just do not and will not believe that is appropriate at all. So, I don't see how that could be supported really by anybody.
Darren,
even if your stance is like, hey, I don't know, we got to get a control on immigration here. Okay.
They threw flashbangs.
No, absolutely not. Like that cannot, I don't feel safer. I feel less safe seeing that sort of stuff anywhere. And, again, I realize for a lot of people, it's going to be like, oh, okay, well, this finally woke up some people. This finally woke up some of the people who are, who have been silent. And, that, again, really not the point.
Yeah.
The point is, if you know this area, if you know this intersection, you can't help but be horrified that is how Friday afternoon, that's how it went down on a Friday afternoon. Like, I'm sorry, that's not us being safer. That's us being less safe. And I don't see how anybody could disagree with that.
No, and you keep seeing these interviews with people who are like, I voted for Trump and he told me he was going to get rid of the criminals, but he's just getting rid of the normal people. He's getting rid of the moms and he's getting the whatever. And it's like, even if someone's like very, very anti-immigration, you should be a full citizen if you're here. You shouldn't be an illegal citizen or whatever they want to call them. That's the people working at the restaurant who are making the pizzas. They're not the criminals. They're not the rapists and the murderers that you're told are the priority of immigration to get them out of this country. They're not the people that are in prison or have had issues with the law. They're trying to make a living. They're trying to make a pizza so they can afford their rent in San Diego. And that's the thing. You go into a nice neighborhood and you go into a nice restaurant and you start arresting the people who work there or who are dining there. I don't think anyone's going to buy your we're just getting rid of the very, very worst of them. It doesn't work anymore.
Right. And, even if you want to tell me someone down the road, I'll remain just a fraction open-minded for anything that may or may not come from this. But again, the response, seeing that kind of presence out there, I don't know. I mean, I think you kind of have to be a bit warped to think that is an appropriate way to deal with this sort of stuff. That's
Agreed.
Just my own. That's me. I think, you can have a position that I would disagree with fundamentally. And I also would say context, like, where are we? That's not far from the border. People live on both sides here, and everybody kind of just does the thing.
Darren,
but you got to be kind of warped to think like that's what we want to see marching through a neighborhood on a Friday afternoon. Not for that.
I went to a nice private Catholic school in North Park, and I'd say 20% of the kids I went to school with lived in Mexico. Mm-hmm. And it's like that's to your point, like. That's just part of life in San Diego. You're going to be sharing this place with people who don't necessarily live in this country, and that's okay. That's part of what makes San Diego great.
And I've enjoyed telling a lot of these stories over the years because a lot of them are in football. A lot of them are in soccer. Eric Gomez, who I had on the halftime show at SDFC, is a kid who grew up on both sides of the border. He went to San Diego State. I remember talking to Alejandro Guido over the years. And Guido, spent a lot of time with his family, I think when he was in high school, that they were in Tijuana. He tells a story about his dad used to wait in the line to get across, and they would have walkie-talkies. And when he was getting close, he would radio to his mom, "Hey, I'm getting close. Get Ale up and make Alejandro get him dressed. I'm getting close to the border here." So we had Brandon Vasquez in town this past weekend. Paul Arriola has joined me recently. I love a lot of these stories about guys who grew up on either one of the two sides, because a lot of it has to do with the footballing culture and the soccer culture. And again, what I love so much about this, I don't know, like I said, at one point during the broadcast, I looked down onto the field and I saw that Buena Forqueta is one of the sponsors of SDFC. And, so it's not like you can really get away from, this is a place that's very, very popular. It's a place that has several locations, and they're closed on Monday, closed again on Tuesday, and I've seen some of their posts, and I think a lot of other people have as well. But anyhow, didn't love the tone heading into the weekend. Was glad, to be able to take my mind off the sort of stuff like a lot of other people, 27,000 plus on Saturday. So, was glad to be able to do that. But still, it was never too far away from just that we're starting with this on Monday, I guess, should probably tell you just, how impactful some of these images have been, at least for me, and I'm sure somebody could rightfully say, oh, yeah, well, welcome to the party, pal. This sort of stuff's been going on in a lot of areas that aren't little peaceful and trendy South Park. I understand all that. I do. But, sometimes when you do see something in a place that you're very familiar with, that you spent some time, maybe, I think people understand, sometimes, those sort of experiences are reminders. And just like I said, it ain't it, man. It's not making anybody feel any better. I'm sorry. I just think you got to be kind of warped to feel better about those images from Friday afternoon. But we can move on. All right. So did do the game on Saturday. I got the opportunity to do the broadcast with Warren Barton. This was on the radio side. Thought we had a pretty good game. Thought we had a pretty good broadcast. I'm a pretty tough critic. I usually cannot stand the sound of my own voice. Even 20 plus years into my radio career, if I was driving around and a commercial came on 760 or wherever, with my voice, I would usually quickly hit the change the channel button there, so I would get something else. I just hate that. But Adrian Garcia Marquez was doing the LAFC and Club America game, which was an incredible game in LA for the final FIFA Club World Cup spot. LAFC's going to the Club World Cup. We'll see if they start wearing protesting T-shirts the way the Seattle Sounders are. We can save that for a different day. But
yeah,
2-0 final in a match that was billed as a homecoming for Brandon Vasquez of Chula Vista. It ended up being a couple of other San Diegans who stole the show. Luca De La Torre, 60th minute, and then Milan Ilaski on his haircut in the 93rd, 94th minute of the match, 2-0. And at the midway point of season number 1, SDFC has 30 points, which is incredible.
Yeah.
They have 9 wins, which is on some sort of mathematical trajectory to be the winningest expansion team of all time. I don't know. Maybe premature to get into that, probably. But at the midway point, 17 matches out of 34, 9-3-5, second place, 30 points. Things are pretty good. Pretty enjoyable Saturday night at Snapdragon Stadium, if you ask me.
Yeah, I think if, 2 months ago, season started, I think 2 months ago. I think if 2 months ago, someone had laid out the scenario for you saying, hey, by June, they're going to be like one of the 3 or 4 best teams in MLS. They will have, victories against Galaxy and LAFC and Austin and Colorado and all these very good teams. And you'd say all those things you just said. They had this many points. They have this many goals scored. This many players getting called up to national teams. I think you would honestly be like, I almost can't believe it. Like it's almost such a good scenario that it's hard to imagine it's actually happening. Now they're not perfect. They're not, the best team in MLS, head and shoulders above everyone else, but expansion teams aren't supposed to be good. And this expansion team so far has been really, really good, if not great. And, outside of some off the field things that have maybe caught the news, and I think we have another one this week to discuss, on the field, they've been exciting, they've been effective, and they just the best compliment I can give them. They don't look like an expansion team, and I don't know that they have in any game this year.
They were without Jeppe Terskov. We talked about that a little bit on Friday, and it turns out he did get a yellow card. It wasn't in the match report, at least the online match reports, but I did see the match report before the game, and Jeppe picked up a yellow card for dissent in the 81st minute against Seattle Sounders on Wednesday night. So, not sure. Maybe it was a little tactical, figuring if there is a match that we're going to miss here, maybe it's good to miss the match against the Seattle Sound or the match against Austin Football Club. and maybe not the Minnesota game, which is the first game back coming up on June 14th, and then Vancouver's around the corner. So, but he did, and I kind of was like, I know Match Report has this. Even the Apple guys were kind of curious too, because we had a chance to chat with them before the start of the broadcast, and they were like, when did Yeppe? Because they did the game. They're like, we didn't see any yellow card. So he did pick one up. It is in the official MLS Match Report. I was shown that before the game. I thought everybody played really well. I don't know that anybody played poorly. Everybody played well for SDFC. Part of that is the way Austin came into the match. They had no interest in moving forward at all. It was hilarious working with Warren Barton. I could feel how frustrated he was getting almost every minute of this broadcast with the way that Austin came into the game. And I pointed it out early, and I know it took a minute or two for us to get up on the Apple TV feed, but if you were listening on the iHeart app or on 760, I pointed this out about 2-3 minutes in. Their goalkeeper, Brad Stuver, first goal kick for Austin, it took forever. They were in time-wasting mode almost from the time that the ref blew the whistle. And every throw-in was an eternity. Every goal kick was an eternity. Every foul, every free kick, everything took an eternity. It just took forever. It started, I cannot believe that it started in like the first, second minute of this match. So that's something that SDFC had to play against as well. You're playing against an Austin team, which at least in theory should have come into the match hungry, looking for goals, realizing, they're without players for yellow card accumulation the same way that SDFC was, but they came in with no ambition whatsoever, and I can tell it really bothered Warren. I had to keep steering the conversation back into the SDFC specific style broadcast, but we were both in agreement. Austin is embarrassing. I cannot believe that their head coach still has a job today, but he does. 11 goals. They spent $30+ million on designated players. It doesn't seem to have any impact on the match at all. I know that they beat SDFC earlier this year, but it was a SDFC team without 4 starters from opening day. So, it's the only time they scored more than 1 goal in a match. Only Brandon Vasquez has more than 1 goal. That remains the same. We could just rerun the tape from last week when we were previewing the game. But it was funny to work with Warren because I could tell we were both like, what are they doing down there? They're not doing anything at all. And to SDFC's credit, sometimes teams have come into Snapdragon Stadium and they've put this style out there and they've said, hey, we're not going to give you anything here. And, it's worked. It worked with Sporting KC. It worked with St. Louis back in week number 2 where SDFC couldn't quite crack it. They couldn't quite get through there. They could dominate the match in a lot of different ways, but if you don't score, whatever. So this time they were able to score. They scored once, they scored twice, put the game away late, and it was a couple of San Diegans that did the job for SDFC. So I was glad about that. I was starting to think I called the first Austin game, loss. I called the game, what game did I call also?
Charlotte?
Charlotte. That was the worst one ever.
Yeah.
So, I was starting to get a little self-conscious that when I'm given the play-by-play microphone, all of a sudden this team doesn't do well. So thankfully, SDFC didn't make me feel worse about myself and picked up 3 points and off into the international break, mostly on a high note. We can talk about Chucky in a minute.
Do you think the players know when you're on the radio broadcast, Darren? Do you think they know when you're doing the play-by-play?
Absolutely.
Maybe they
They're
just
like, oh, God, we've got the C-list play-by-play guy.
I wonder if it's just that Adrian Garcia Marquez's baritone voice is not rattling the field beneath their feet. And they're like, oh, Adrian's not here. I don't know.
You can definitely hear that guy, even with 27,000 people in the building.
What a booming voice that guy has.
He does.
It's fantastic. I feel like he could call out my name from the other side of the city, and I'd find him. First thing, and I am this guy. This is the first time I've done this on a podcast with you. I'm uniform guy. I love a good uniform. What a great uniform Austin has. It's a great, and it's a great sponsor for them, Yeti across the chest, but great colors, great uniform, great logo. You disagree?
I disagree because I'm colorblind.
Oh, that's right. You were struggling to see the numbers on the back of the jerseys. You mentioned that a couple times on the broadcast.
I was on the far side. Second half, when Austin was attacking towards the south side of the stadium, I was struggling to see their numbers because
That's fair.
not. They should have darker green numbers on the white backdrop. That would make it a lot easier for me.
Agreed. Function over fashion for you. The funny part of this game to me is you just nailed it. Austin has no offense. They're poorly coached, and they weren't even trying to score, except for like 5 minutes after halftime. What the hell was that? Like, me and Alex Pena were talking about it in the Section 1904 Discord and the SDFC channel during the game. Like, we're like, man, they're not even trying to score. Like, San Diego's going to break through at some point and like win this game. And then they came out of halftime and me and Alex were like, oh, fuck, they're trying to score now. Oh, shit. Wow, they actually have something. And for like 5 minutes, they were like borderline terrifying. And then they just stopped and went right back to not trying to score at all. It was so strange. Did you and Warren have any idea what was going on there?
No, we talked about it. I do remember saying, okay, this is a different looking Austin team coming out of the gate, and
like
SDFC is going to have to adjust to it. I thought maybe they just tried to slow it down, lull everybody to sleep at halftime, and then Mikey goes in there and is like, okay, guys, we know what they're going to do.
Yeah.
We know what it is that they're going to do out there, so, just stick with the game plan, all that sort of stuff. And then all of a sudden, to use a horse racing phrase, what Austin does is they go to the whip a little bit, and all of a sudden they start picking up the pace a little bit. You're like, oh, wait a second here. What's going on? So, yeah, we noticed it. We talked a little bit about it, but to your point, it didn't take long for SDFC to make the adjustment right back and turn it around back on them and start taking control again. I thought the midfield was great. I thought Alvarado, again, had another really, really terrific performance. I will say also, that bicycle kick attempt in the first half was amazing from him. I did not realize that he had that.
You like screamed. I've never heard you that excited. You were when we were at 1090, there was a really fun goals call that Craig Elston did. There was a fight going on and the goalies were skating out towards each other and the ref got in the middle of it. And so I had a clip somewhere of Craig Elston yelling, I wanted to see a goalie fight. And it's always just stuck in my head of like a really funny thing. And then you sounded just like it because you were just like, bicycle kick. And then you were like, I wanted to see the bicycle kick. It was such a good kick. And he missed it by like 3 inches.
I know. We used to refer to those as Craiggasms on the air.
Yes,
when
that's
Elston
right.
would have a goal call with the gulls, we used to refer to them as Craiggasms.
Yeah.
So we always used to love playing the Craiggasms on the air. I almost had one of those as well. I will say, this being the third time that I've done play-by-play, right? And in theory, you should get better. First time I thought was Second time I didn't. There was something that happened very late where Adrian had a family situation.
Yeah.
So I got pushed into the play-by-play chair very last minute, and I hadn't prepared for it.
Yeah, like day of, right?
Like an hour before.
Yeah.
So he just had a family situation pop up last second, and thankfully everything's fine. But, Warren got brought in real last minute. I, moved from the analyst chair to the play-by-play chair. This time, at least the mindset was, like, I had the mindset of being play-by-play all week long, so I was able to just And really what that is, I mean, I just realized I couldn't be Adrian. Like, I did not be Adrian.
Yeah.
And I think and I told Adrian that too, because he said, hey, how'd the broadcast go? And I said, good. Once I realized that I'm never going to be you.
Yeah.
It's just easier for me to go at my own cadence and go at my own pace. And I said, I just have to come up with a better plan for the goals because I don't have a plan for the goals. And it's not like some of this stuff, I don't know that Adrian really planned for the 95th minute, Chucky Lozano, Chucky, all that sort of stuff. Sometimes, you just sort of, but I had to realize I wasn't going to do one of these long, extended goal kind of calls. And once I got through that, I felt like it was working a little bit better for me. I also spent a little time listening to some of the other broadcasters during the day, so that was a big benefit for me. Just flip it on the Apple TV Plus, on the option, listen to the hometown broadcast. So slowed everything down a little bit, let Warren come in a little bit more, just got the calls. I thought I got the calls mostly right. I will confess here. Milan Olaski got a haircut.
Yeah.
And the reason it took me a second to say his name was because I thought it was Verhoeven. Because he cut his hair so short.
Yeah.
And the two of them are on the far side of the field. And McVay also has a short haircut.
Yeah.
And, you're sort of just trying to see the match out, and it's in stoppage time, and you're kind of looking at the clock, and I thought at first, and I almost called it for Verhoeven, and I'm glad I didn't. Instead, I went into the, surely that's going to be 3 points for SDFC. And then I saw that it was Olaski. But that haircut threw me for a loop, Milan. What are you doing to us up there in the broadcast booth?
I actually not a big fan of the haircut, but it's not my hair, so I'm not going to judge. No, I thought you did good, and actually, what I really liked about it, and I didn't know that you had kind of planned this, and you had said to Adrian and yourself, like, I can't be Adrian. What I really loved about it was it felt a lot more conversational.
Yeah.
Like, you and Warren would kind of like go off on like a conversation together for a minute or two, and you would just stop calling every pass because what do you pass to him, pass to him, pass to him, pass to him. So you would like stop and you guys would get into a good conversation about the game. And then like after a minute of that, you'd be like, all right, let's get back to the action. And you'd start calling the game again. And I was like, I loved that because the conversations you and Warren were having were so informative and entertaining. And I was like, this is a different kind of broadcast than what Adrian does, but I like it. It almost feels like I'm watching a podcast call a soccer game. So no, I liked it totally. And then my brain was already there the next morning when I was watching a French Open match, and I was like, man, they really don't say shit when you're watching tennis. Like
I mean,
TV.
on TV, you know,
But
it's like TV, you sort of just let it all, you know, you let the pictures do the talking.
No, you'd have a point that went like a minute and a half and they say nothing. For a minute and a half, it's just dead air. And I'm like, wow, this is a whole different thing. But yeah, it's TV versus radio. But no, I thought you and Warren were great. I always love Warren, especially when he gets like crotchety about stuff. And he was real crotchety.
He was. he was. Again, and Adrian's the best. I want to make it very clear here. Adrian, you know, cannot come back soon enough. I will be back on the call this weekend for the Club America match against SDFC. I don't know what to expect there at all in terms of who's actually going to play in that one.
Probably
so
not you,
that'll
Steve.
be a nice challenge for broadcasters to see what sort of rosters both of these teams trot out there. But I agree, you know, and I think sometimes what I tried to do was I just didn't want to burn a lot of energy saying, you know, Verhoeven to McVeigh, McVeigh to McNair, McNair to Godoy, Godoy back to McVeigh, McVeigh, McNair. You know, you're like, okay, like everybody's just sort of passing it around the middle of the field here, like it's that Simpsons clip.
Yeah.
So, you know, there wasn't a lot of, you know, when the passes were starting to move forward and go towards the attacking third is when I would say, okay, now, you know, Bombino down the far side here gets it to Lozano. So, you know, that's what we were trying to do. My favorite moment, though, is talking about Warren sounding like he was being, your words, not mine, crotchety. But when Brandon Vasquez got subbed off, he ends up getting subbed off, what minute was it?
Minute?
In the 72nd minute.
Yeah.
And, you know, they're down a goal, and he's like, you know, Warren says something about, you know, he's your leading goal scorer, and you're subbing him off. I'm like, well, you know, he played 90 minutes on Wednesday night, and Warren goes, so what? And I was like, don't shoot the messenger. I'm just saying he played 90 minutes on Wednesday night, and maybe they think he's tired. He's like, you're paying him $10 million. He shouldn't be getting subbed off. He's the only person on this team who can even score.
Yeah.
And like, you're subbing this guy off? Their DPs, they don't work. It just doesn't work there. Oh man.
I don't think they're
not
well
our
coached.
problem. Not our problem at all. But when you spent $30 million on Murto Azuni, Brandon Vasquez, and Usman Bukhari, I mean, they might be good pieces, but they're not pieces that fit together. This ain't it.
To
Man.
Warren's point, they never seemed like they were aggressively trying to go in any sort of direction. They were just kind of
Yeah.
passing it around, waiting for the clock to turn to zeros or whatever.
Yeah. It was tough. It was bad. And, you know, again, it was a fun night. The only thing, I feel so bad for Chucky Lozano.
Yeah, that's
he's
what I
this
wanna
close
get
to
into.
rejoining the Mexican national
I
team.
know.
And I don't know what it was that they showed on television, but it happened right in front of us. He got clipped to start the second half, and he was unhappy about it. Then he got into a collision, and he had his right hand on his right hip for a while.
Yeah.
And Warren paid more attention to that than I did. I was just, again, lesson learned for me. Keep your eyes on the ball. Like, that's it. Don't get distracted by the supporter section. Don't get distracted by any of this other sort of stuff. You do that when you're doing color because you want to bring in a little bit of the elements
Sure.
of everything else that's happening. Like, a great example would be the Galaxy match. I had my eyes elsewhere when, who was it? Who was it that shanked the ball late there, the defender? Whichever it was. Was it Cerrillo? Yeah, I think it was. So, you know, he ends up shanking at the end, and I'm trying to look to see, you know, are more players starting to run up? So I didn't see exactly who it was that shanked the ball right at the end in stoppage time, where Dreyer gets it, passes it to Chucky.
Oh, that one, yeah.
You know, I thought it was actually Yoshida, just because I looked. By the time I had looked, everybody was trying to chase the ball, and I saw him collapse onto the field. But anyway, that's not the point. The point was I'm just trying to watch the ball during the match and not pay a ton of attention. But I did see Chucky had his right hand on his right hip, and I thought, okay, well, that didn't look great. And then a couple of minutes later, he goes down, John, almost in the exact same spot that he went down when he had to come off that first ever match. And I mean, it was really kind of eerie that it happened right in front of us again. And you could just see he motions towards the SDFC bench. He did the thing where he's like, you're going to have to make a change here. And, came off and obviously it was not part of the plan at all. And I thought Mikey handled it really well. He's like, you're gutted for the poor kid. You're gutted for this guy. He's like, it goes to show you too. Like sometimes there's only so much. We rotated him. He played 45 on Wednesday night, and and when we had 3 matches in a week, he started all of them. So it just goes to show you, like it's just there's a randomness to some of this sort of stuff. I know he's got a history of it. I haven't seen anything official, at least as of the time of the recording here on Monday morning. It's just past 11 o'clock. I haven't seen anything official, but I guess it stands to reason he's probably not going to join the Mexican national team, which stinks for him.
Yeah, and he's a small guy who plays a physical sport and a physical position, and probably because of that, because he's a small guy, he plays to the contact because he's looking for calls sometimes, and sometimes you get burned by that, and that sucks for him. I imagine this has something to do with the previous injury from a couple months ago. It's the same hamstring, right? Same leg?
It is the same hamstring that kept him out when he was still with PSV, and the hamstring that took him away for, 4 weeks earlier this season as well.
Yeah, so it's a bummer for him. I guess selfishly, it's if he misses a friendly, he was probably going to miss a friendly anyway. It's not the end of the world. Hopefully he's feeling better in time when the MLS break is over and they come back and they're playing real games again. But yeah, kind of heartbreaking for him. Guy who told everyone what was important to him, worked his ass off to get there, and then he's gonna miss this opportunity. Hopefully he keeps playing well, and there's another one right around the corner for him. We'll see. That sucks. I know you said you didn't want to get into it, but I didn't even notice this or read anything about it until I saw it in UT this morning on their article on the game. So we talked on Friday about SDFC and MLS looking at the fight between SDFC and Galaxy fans, and I think there was 33 fans that are now indefinitely banned from Snapdragon Stadium and MLS games, et cetera, et cetera. I read in the UT that there are some supporters groups that no-showed this game because they were angry about this. Is that what you were referring to earlier? You said you didn't really want to get into it. Is this a thing that you know anything about or no?
I was given a heads up earlier in the day by somebody with the team, like just because I was going to be on the call. Yeah. Like heads up, we're not sure what's going to happen. We've heard that some of our supporters groups may show up. Some of them might not show up. We're not really quite clear what it is that's happening. And, just in case, for you on the broadcast, if you notice something different here, we don't want you to just be caught flat-footed by this. And I was like, all right, cool. And I didn't really think about it all that much. And I will tell you, quite honestly, I didn't really think about it much when the match started. I did give Warren the heads up, too. I said, hey, I don't really know what's happening with our supporters section here today. I just know what I was told, and I'm not really sure what's going on or what the conversation is. I'm not somebody who goes over to Reddit and goes to the SDFC pages, although maybe I should. I don't know. Seems like things are hopping over there. But yeah, I'm not quite sure what it is that's happening. And when I said I don't want to get into it, it's only because I don't really know anything. Because it's not really my business. It's for me, I'm not somebody who, I like all the people in the supporters groups. I've met some of the guys with the newer group, some of the newer groups like Dago Boys and Bada 18. Yeah. Like I've met some of I don't really know many of those guys, but like I was a paying member of Chavo's back in the day when it was with SD Loyal. So, I know a lot of these guys, and my role with the club is one that like I'm there to call the game and not really get involved in some of the back and forth or whatever it is. So I don't fully understand it. And some of this I will admit is is a bit of willful ignorance. I did reach out to some of the people that I know that I've known for a while and just say, hey, I just want to make sure you guys are okay.
Yeah.
I'm not acting on anybody's behalf other than my own, but some of you I do care about personally. And I just want to make sure, are you okay after the Galaxy match? Or are you okay even with some of the stuff that happened this past weekend? And I also would tell you, at least for me, being able to have the tunnel vision of the actual game itself, I will tell you, and this is not commentary on whether it was or wasn't as loud or less lively or whatever. This is not commentary on that. I will tell you, I just really didn't notice during the broadcast what it was. A time or two I did look down, and I thought the section was empty right before the game, but it filled in during the game, and I really didn't give it much thought. Like I said, I was really, really dialed in on the play-by-play, just following the ball around the field, especially with the challenges in the second half for a colorblind guy. So, I'll watch it back and see, if there's something I think is noticeable, but obviously the seed has been planted, so maybe I'm anticipating it. But, I think we're better off when we have everybody there. That's my own personal opinion. And,
Yeah.
I don't want this to become the story for a team that has 30 points at the midway point of season number 1. I also will tell you, too, and understanding the differences between FC Barcelona and SDFC, like, I just got back from there. There's a supporters group that is banned by FC Barcelona, and like they just move on. And I hope that there's some common ground here and cooler heads prevail and all that other sort of stuff. But I will tell you, like, the games are going to go on and the broadcasts are going to go on. And I do think it's better. The team still, after the match, the team still went over to the supporter section and celebrated with them, with the people who were there. I will choose to focus on the people who are going to the games, not the people who are not going to the games, and just hope that at some point here everybody gets on the same page, because I think it's better when everybody's working together. We don't need any of this sort of stuff taking away from the actual product on the field, which is pretty fucking good right now.
Yeah, that's the other funny thing is, like, if the team was not that good, I don't think we'd be having these issues, because less people would be showing up, and the people that are showing up would be more willing to just be like, I'm here for the team. But because the team's good and popular and all this stuff, it seems like there's kind of a race to stake out ground or make up the rules. Do you want to talk about the Padres?
I don't know though. Is it any different for you as a viewer? Like I said, I was just locked in. So like,
I didn't notice it until I read it in the UT article, and then I was like, wait, they no-showed? Like, usually that's and like I started reading it, and I thought it was
some of them were there. Somebody said some of them were there, but maybe not others. And
I thought it was going to be tied to the ice raids we were talking to at the beginning of the show. I thought it was going to be something like we talked about happening in Nashville, and then I was like, oh wait, no, this is in response to the people who got indefinitely banned for fighting. Like, don't fight, man. Like, I linked a video in Front Row Seat this morning of the guy from Talking Friars. I think his name is Ben. Going on and on about a fight that happened at Petco Park. Mm-hmm. And he's like, there's like Padre fans beating up Padres fans. And he was like, come on, man, like, you're on the same team. And I was like, I get what he's saying, and I put it out there because I thought it was interesting, but also, like, it doesn't fucking matter what team you support. Like, these are not places you go to fight. They're places you go to watch, enjoy, and celebrate your team. Like, you shouldn't be fighting. Just stop. Stadiums are allowed to ban people who get into fist fights, because that's not where you should be doing your fist fighting.
Yeah, I would think so. And I will say also, we can say whatever we want about club culture and supporter culture, but one thing that's been made clear, when you actually get to the motivation of why Mohamed Mansour invested, this is business. This is business. Yeah. This isn't, I just brought up Barcelona. This isn't a fan-owned club like FC Barcelona, where even everybody, has some sort of say here, because like, hey, I'm a socio, I have a piece of this. They've made it clear. I've heard Tom Penn recently talk to Adrian, and he's talking about business. And these guys, we could say whatever we want about building culture. We could say we want about building a team. We could say building an academy. At the end of the day, they invested this money because this is a business. And, if you keep having a conversation or pulling at the strings of any of these conversations, at the end of it, you're going to find what's in the best interest of business. And, that's ultimately what's going to be the arbiter of any of these things or any of these decisions that are being made. So like I said, I mean, I've enjoyed getting to meet some of the guys with the new supporters groups. I've enjoyed being reconnected with a lot of the people that I know from the current supporters groups, or the supporters groups that have been around a little bit longer. And I think it's better off when we're all there together. But, I don't know. I feel like I've gone on too much about this for somebody who just said I don't really know much, and I just don't. I really just don't know much about it. I don't know why it was that people chose to say. I don't know. Maybe it had something to do with the punishment or how the punishment was going to be handed out. I don't know. But I know 27,000 people showed up there, and they had a good time. And nobody was sitting around going, "Oh, well, this sucks." So I like having one of the better supporter sections and some great energy inside of the building, but. It was still fun. All right. Anyhow, that's that, and like you said, I saw this fight at Petco Park, and I saw some of the violence in Paris. I mean, it's just a story that unfortunately rides adjacent to a lot of sports. It's just the way it goes. So, yeah. Padres took 2 out of 3 from the Tigers, or Pirates, I should say. Yep. I feel like that's probably good. I know the games, I didn't feel like they were all that satisfying. That Padres got through Friday night, lost on Saturday, had to score a bunch of runs late to win on Sunday. But taking 2 out of 3 before playing the Giants, to me, I think is probably good from 30,000 feet up above. Admittedly, not a ton of exposure to the Padres. I guess the Gavin Sheets stuff and the trade stuff is probably more interesting than the actual results from this past weekend. But you watched more than I did.
The only thing I would say is that there was a point in like the 5th or 6th inning on Sunday where I was like, I can't fucking believe they're dropping a series to the Pirates at home. Yeah. Like, you can't do this. And then they went on a rally after Gavin Sheets, sacrificed himself for the good of the team, throwing himself face first into the left field wall while not catching a home run. And then they got fired up. And they had a big inning, and they won that game. And I said after the game, I was like, the Pirates stink, but that was an important win. Because if they lost that, we would be talking about, I can't believe they just dropped the fucking series to the Pirates at home, and the offense looked so pathetic and bad, and they're not exciting right now. And they put something together. They won a game. I don't know if you saw the rally. It included one of the most Tyler Wade hits ever, where he hit the ball like at the pitcher. It bounced off the pitcher, and the pitcher couldn't find it for long enough that everyone was able to move up a base. But yeah, let's talk about left field, because I have an idea that I wanna roll your way. Number one, I feel like we need to talk about this, because the last time I mentioned Gavin Sheets was not a left fielder. You're like, oh, because he ran into the wall in left field? Yes, Darren, because he keeps running into the wall in left field.
But no, you're misrepresenting that conversation. I'm going to stop you right there, because that's not what I said. I said you can put a guy in left field if you want, but you have to tell him, don't go running into the wall. If the ball's hit over your head, that's on the pitcher.
That's true.
This isn't good coaching for me. I'm sorry. Yeah. This isn't good coaching. And Gavin Sheets' agent needs to tell him, you need to stop, because that's not what I said. Was, hey, my friend Barry Axelrod was an agent, and when Craig Biggio got put in left field, he's like, just play it in front of you. Goes over your head, probably on the pitcher. Don't be a hero. You're in this lineup because of your bat. So you can't be running into the wall if you're Gavin Sheets here. Yes. I understand that he's a very, very limited at best left fielder, but this is, you've got to explain to him that ball, you have no chance on that. Don't be a hero. If it goes over your head, that's going to go on the pitcher no matter what. So stop doing this. I cannot believe that this happened again.
Can I make the counter argument, I think, is that he's not as good a hitter as Fernando Tatis Jr. He's not as good of a hitter as Jackson Merrill, and both of those guys would absolutely throw their face into a wall to try and catch a ball. So I'm assuming, even if they're like, hey, you're in here for your bat, make sure you don't get injured. He's like, well, fucking those guys are trying to catch the ball over the wall. Why shouldn't I? I should be the hero.
But Tatis was moved out because they felt all along, even when he was playing shortstop, they felt like he would be a plus outfielder.
Yeah.
There were people in the organization. I went through this on radio, and I got dragged, even though I was eventually proven right.
Yep.
Not a single apology from any of you. But they wanted to move him to the outfield. And, the stuff with Merrill's, that was a little bit unexpected, but they still thought, like, this guy has what it takes. Like, this is out of necessity.
Yeah, they know. They know.
That.
He hits like, he continues to hit like shit when he plays in left field. He's hitting like 50 points lower when
That's
he plays.
Because he thinks he has to catch balls that are going out for home runs.
Totally agree. He's a DH first baseman. He should never play the outfield again. And honestly, no, I mean it. Like, now that has happened, and whether or not he ends up in the concussion protocol, like, I think that yesterday was a wake-up call of, like, we can't keep doing this. We cannot keep putting Gavin Sheets out here and hoping that nothing bad happens, because something bad is already happening. So I think this is like light a fire under AJ Preller time, and I have a trade idea, and it's mostly stolen from Dennis Lin. Who, Dennis, look, I love Dennis. He doesn't write a lot. So when he does write, when he puts something on The Athletic, an actual written thing, I pay attention to it. Mm-hmm. Not only did Dennis write about this, but then like 6 other people wrote kind of the same thing, which is the Padres are circling around this outfielder that the Red Sox have named Jarren Duran. Jarren Duran.
We're going with Jarren Duran here on this podcast.
I got the Duran is in the pronunciation guide, so we got that part right. The Jarren I'm not sure of, but he was an all-star last year. He finished 8th in MVP voting. He's 28 years old. He's got a lot of control left. He's having an okay year hitting-wise. Seems like he's a pretty good fielder, and he appears to be blocking the path of their number one prospect, who everyone wants to see on the Red Sox because he's really good and they're not good. So I started thinking to myself that if they trade a prospect and get Jarren Duran, then okay, cool, you've solved left field. But what does that really do for the Red Sox? So they got one more prospect. Cool. But the issue that the Red Sox are having right now, and I'm going to quote this guy, Zach Reimer from Bleacher Report, who apparently covers the Red Sox. Quote, "One thing Boston could do this winter is pursue what would perhaps be a mutual parting of ways with Rafael Devers. The relationship between him and the club feels broken. Yet you have to hand it to him for keeping his value up with blah, blah, blah. He's still hitting well. But I guess in the offseason, they told him, you're a DH now, don't worry about fielding. And then their first baseman got hurt, and they were like, hey, how about you play first base? And he was like, hey, how about you go fuck yourself? Like, you told me that I didn't have to field anymore, and I'm not going to do that. I'm now a DH. And so now the fans hate him because they feel like he's not willing to sacrifice. The team's angry with him because he wouldn't do what was in the best interest of the team. There's something there, and he's a really good baseball player. He's a really good hitter who makes not that much more money than Xander Bogaerts. So this is my thought. It's a crazy one, but this is my thought. What if you could get Duran and Devers? And what if you could get off the Xander Bogaerts contract? Now, of course, you're going to have to throw in just tons of money, probably. Even though he's making about the same as Devers, he's not nearly as valuable or as good as Devers right now. But he seems to be a hitter who hits better at Fenway Park and in the AL East, so maybe some of that would. But if you put together Bogaerts and Sheets, who has a couple years of control and looks like he might have fixed his swing and is hitting some previous potential and still has a couple years of control, if I'm not mistaken. So you go Bogaerts, Sheets, and then throw in your favorite prospects. They want DeVries, they want Salas, who has got a lower back injury that he's out months. Lower back injury for a catcher doesn't sound like a great idea. But, take 2 or 3 of the team's top prospects, package them with Sheets, Bogaerts, maybe some money, and you shore up the DH position long-term, and your outfield now has essentially 3 all-stars going forward. Does that do anything for you, Darren? Is that too crazy for AJ Preller's swing, or do you feel like that's I'm right on target here?
We're just talking in the abstract, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is not a time where you want me to bring up the fact that Xander Bogaerts has full no trade protection.
Correct.
Okay. So we're just gonna go ahead and say that Xander's gonna waive his no trade clause so that he can go back to Boston.
Correct. That is what I'm assuming here. How many players in baseball still have no trade clauses?
Well, they were all with the Padres. So so Duran, the left fielder. Devers plays where?
DH.
Okay, so he's your DH. Who's going to play shortstop?
So I was wondering that, and I came up with a really good solution. It would probably cost you another prospect, although not a top prospect. One of the last drafts of assistant GM AJ Preller with the Texas Rangers, he drafted or helped to draft Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, who is currently playing shortstop for the Pirates. He has won a Gold Glove. He's having a good year. The Pirates stink, so if they can turn him into a halfway decent prospect, why not?
And you're sending Xander that way, and you're sending DeVries.
Yeah, and Salas if they want him.
And damaged good Salas, who, can't bat more than 200 anywhere.
He's batting 188 before his back gave out.
Why would Boston do this?
Because they know they have to get rid of Devers to make room for the prospect who's coming up.
Okay.
And because they believe in DeVries, yeah. And maybe Salas or maybe someone else.
Okay. Well, I think AJ likes putting together complicated trades. I will just say this about Dennis. I do think when Dennis starts hitting the same key on the piano over and over again, he's usually on to something.
Right.
He started playing the same key last year with Luis Arraez.
Yeah.
And then, that ended up happening a lot sooner rather than later. So I think sometimes, Dennis sort of senses where there's smoke. There's usually a little bit of fire here with Preller. So for him to go back to this, I think gives it some legs.
He's not the only one. This Duran thing feels real, and to me, when it feels real but it's taking a while, I'm like, Preller's digging around to see if there's something else he can do. He's going, yeah, things are hard between you and Devers right now, right? What would you want for him?
Yeah, I don't know. If I'm a Boston fan, I'd rather let Devers just kind of figure it out than bring back Xander on the worst contract in all of baseball.
It's the funny thing is it's almost the exact same contract. They're both getting paid roughly $25 million for the next 10 years or whatever, 9 years. It's very, very similar contract. And, in theory, Xander also plays defense, so it's supposed to be worth more. But yeah, no, that's why I said you'd probably have
But Devers is a better player.
Much better player.
Like you would certainly, bet more on Devers.
Yeah, you'd have to throw in some money
or
something.
Going. I know, 28 years old, 2-3 WAR. He's played every game, Hey, listen, Devers can be as unhappy as he fucking wants to be. He's got a 923 OPS, so who gives a shit?
Right.
So I don't know. I don't know that I'm gonna need to trade that guy, to be honest. But,
yeah, it's and I admit that it's a little on the crazy side, but sometimes I try and see where Preller's going, because sometimes he pulls off the trade and was like, whoa, I didn't even see that coming. And I was like, I don't. The Duran thing makes sense, but I'm like, if it makes sense, why aren't they doing it yet? I was like, I wonder if there's other pieces.
Is that also, I think the other thing you have to ask yourself, right? A couple of years ago, and this has popped up over the last couple of days, John and I were laughing about it last week, that, all of the players that got traded to the Washington Nationals seem to be blossoming as superstars right in front of our eyes, or at least on social media, since, I know I'm not watching the Nationals at all.
Yeah.
But, whether it was Mackenzie Gore being the first pitcher to get 100 Ks, or whether it was James Wood, he's off to an amazing start to his career. Bobby Barrels, who we wrote off. This podcast has been around long enough that we've written off Robert Hassel III.
You know who they can't trade for to play shortstop? C.J. Abrams. It's worth too much.
Yeah, he's been good. He's an all-star, even if you say, well, listen, take it with a pinch of salt. But we've seen that come up. But the point was, they felt like, 2022 was worth investing in at that level because they were that close. And I think you can make the case either way. 33 and 24, like how much do you want to invest? Probably, you probably feel like this is a team worth investing in. But right now, John, when you don't have a left fielder, the catching situation, you all know how I feel about it. The pitching feels precarious. Michael King seems like he's in a good mood. Great.
Yeah, so is Darvish.
All of the optimism seemed like it was hedged by his manager, who talked about any progress being incremental at best.
Yeah.
So I also would have to hesitate just based, not that the team doesn't need a little bit of support or that you can pull off a trade for this left fielder. I don't know what it would cost you. I don't know if any trade hypotheticals have been out just in terms of bringing the left fielder in. But, that team in 2022, they felt like, okay, this is worth investing in, even if we have to get ridiculed on social media a couple of years down the road. I'm not quite certain yet Maybe after this week, maybe after June, we'll know a little bit more. I don't know what I'd be willing to invest yet in the 2025 Padres.
Actually, follow-up question. I'm going to give you two. You answer whichever one is closer to your heart. Number one, do you think Jason Hayward ever plays for the Padres again? And number two, do you think Jason Hayward is actually injured?
Yeah, I think so. He's old. So
I know, but sometimes they're like, "Oh, I pulled something. I'm going to go to Arizona and work on it." Right?
Yeah.
And they try and fix their game mid-season with an injury.
Yeah, I mean, I think at this stage of his career, that's, that happened in Boston, or not Boston, in Chicago, when the Cubs, and I think people will kind of figure out this, this line here. But like the Cubs just said, like, we don't have time to fix him. He's got to fix himself in the offseason. And like he stunk that first year when he was in Chicago. They're like, we just can't do that. The stakes are too high right now. So I guess I can't really answer because I'm not around it. That's a question for somebody who's got a credential as to whether or not he's actually, just working on stuff. But
do you think he plays for the Padres ever again?
Yeah, I'll say yes, just because, it might take a little while for some of these deals to go down. What was the hypothetical, though, for Jaron Duran? It's a tough name to say.
From Dennis, I didn't see one. I think he just said that the Padres had interest in him previously. That interest is again. The two sides have been talking. I think he laid out some of the reasons why the Red Sox might be willing to move him, but I didn't see any. This is what Boston is interested in side of that.
Yeah, I'm trying to see if, just skimming through Dennis here, because I know I just read the first couple of paragraphs, whether the Padres possess enough trade capital to acquire Duran and leave enough resources for other needs is another question. Duran, who can play multiple outfield positions, finished last season 7th in the majors in WAR. He's not been as productive in 2025. 28-year-old, making only $3.75, club control through 2028.
Yep.
Padres still boast a pair of top 50 prospects in DeVries and Ethan Salas, but the organization's farm system has been thinned out. I thought I saw on social media somebody dangled out there Estrada.
Oh,
Jeremiah Estrada. And I was like, okay. I don't know where that came from. That just sort of popped into my timeline. So,
why would a team under 500 want to trade for a bullpen arm?
Because it's June 2nd.
I guess. I actually did look at their bullpen. I was like, their bullpen could use help. The Padres, I think they like what they're seeing from this like David Morgan guy. So I was like, I could see them moving a bullpen arm. But then I was like, why would the Red Sox do that? Why would they care?
I mean, again, because I guess it's June and everybody's like 2 games or 3 games out of a wild card spot. So, you're not going to raise the white flag on the season now, unless you're the Marlins.
Yeah, or the White Sox. I saw the White Sox shopping around.
Rockies. Rockies have 9 wins. Oh my God.
I know.
You've got to be. I mean, 9 wins still. I feel like last Monday when I looked at the standings, I was like, "Whoa, still got 9."
Probably
a week later.
Probably still. Yeah.
Jesus.
What
the fuck?
How do you pronounce this guy's name? I used to pronounce it Luis Robert, but I think it's Robert. Is it Luis Robert on the White Sox?
The White Sox guy, yeah.
He's
another former target of AJ Preller.
I mean, he again, like 2 years ago, he was good. He was an all-star. He won a Silver Slugger. He got MVP votes. He's terrible now. He's hitting 180. And so I think there was I saw some smoke around that of like, oh, the Padres might be a good place to pick him up, put him in the middle of the lineup, see if a different situation, can bring back the player he was a couple of years ago. But who knows?
Reclamation projects mid-season, yeah. I'm not so sure.
Yeah, I don't love it.
I'm not so sure about that. That's why I think the idea of Jaron Duran seems to make more sense than, well, let's just take a chance and hope it works out for this guy in the middle of the year. Like we've seen a couple of those. We have seen a couple of those. Gavin Sheets, great example. But usually that's get a guy in camp, change of scenery. Change of scenery sometimes is a great idea if a player's good. Sometimes the guy just stinks. And, a bad player in one place is going to be a bad player in another place.
Ryan Ludwig, bad change of scenery guy.
Yeah. Although, was he bad in St. Louis that final year? That was Petco. He just couldn't mentally.
Yeah, no, and that's part of it, right? Like sometimes a guy's a good hitter. You don't know. Maybe Darren hits well because he's hitting into the wall at Fenway Park and the porch at Yankee Stadium, and you get him at Petco Park, and it's like, oh, he's actually like 70% as good as we thought he was.
In the middle of a season, sometimes it doesn't work for guys. I mean, Soto wasn't real good here when they traded over for him. Obviously, better in the second season, but
hey, speaking of trades, real quick. Because I saw Bill Simmons put this trade out here, and now I see a bunch of people doing like copycat versions of it. Now that the Knicks are officially out.
What? They are? John, I recorded this game because I had the SDFC broadcast on Saturday. I've missed it.
I saw there's a guy I follow named Joe Flynn who used to cover the Knicks. He had a blog. I think now he just kind of tweets about him. But Joe tweeted out, it was a very good close game until halftime. And Joe tweeted out at halftime, he's like, this Knicks team has been just dog shit in the third quarter for like months now. And he was like, now would be a really good time for them to not do that. And they came out and they were dog shit in the third quarter. And that was the game. That was totally the game. But I see people with this fake trade, which is Cat and Miles Bridges going to the Milwaukee Bucks for Giannis and I think there was some sort of toss in there, Pat Connaughton or something. That's the one I keep seeing around social media. Bill Simmons also said you could just sub out Miles Bridges for OG Anunoby, which if I'm Milwaukee, I would be more interested in. But if you were a Knicks fan and someone said, let's just go with the Anunoby one because I think it's the better offer. Cat and Anunoby out, and in comes essentially Giannis with some, end of bench fluff. Do you think that makes the Knicks better? Do you think it makes the Knicks worse? Is it something that you would be willing to do, bet on Giannis's future where he's going to be really expensive, but also, physically probably breaking down? Where do you sit on this if you're the GM of the Knicks?
Well, who is our coach?
That I don't know. Let's assume it's
There seems
Tibbs.
to be some questions about that position, by the way.
I know. Let's assume it's Tibbs for right now. It probably shouldn't be, but let's assume it is because otherwise we'll get bogged down.
I think I think Giannis would be amazing. I would love to see it. I don't know that I would have many reservations about Karl Anthony Towns for Giannis. I'm a little apprehensive about Bridges or OG. I mean, they just extended OG, and they just traded a lot for
6 picks.
Bridges. So,
yeah.
To invest in those guys. Now, again, it's Giannis.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know. I mean, do you bring in Mike Budenholzer?
Who do you want? I mean, the obvious answer is Jay Wright, right? The longtime Villanova coach comes in, becomes the coach of the Nova Knicks.
Somebody who can run an offense.
A lot
somebody
of
who
Mike D'Antoni.
Yeah, again, and making it to Game 6 of the Eastern Conference Finals is not something. It's not nothing. It is not nothing. But I don't know where you can go when you're just this limited in attack or offense. I guess when you just have these kind of limitations where it's like, hey, Jalen Brunson's not a big guy. Like you just can't say just go do it. Like go figure it out. I think Giannis would be amazing. I'd be willing to give a lot. I would be willing to give a lot, but it makes me nervous. OG's such a good. I mean, they're both really, really good defenders. I think Bridges really sort of scuffled to make himself noticeable, and people had higher expectations for what it was that he was going to bring on both sides of the basketball. So,
I agree. Real shame.
But then you're messing up the Villanova vibes there a little bit.
I know. Real shame that that Patrick Ewing's college coaching career didn't take off because he'd be the perfect guy to come in and be the head coach of the New York Knicks.
You practice that shot? Yeah. I mean, if you can have an off season where you end up with Giannis Antetokounmpo, and that's pretty good.
Probably got to jump on that.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, how many opportunities are you going to get to get a guy who who was it that said recently he would score 250 points in a game in the 60s?
Oh, I don't know. I missed that.
Was that LeBron who said that? Somebody said that.
He probably would. They're probably not wrong.
Yeah, and we got our NBA Finals that I think you and I talked about a little more than or less than a week ago, which was very, very good. Of course, I had when I was looking for Dennis Lin's article today at The Athletic, I will tell you, I also logged onto the NBA page. I clicked on the NBA tab, And one of the first stories I saw was, should the NBA be concerned with small market finals?
God.
I was like, I'm not even clicking on this. I don't even care what the answer is. I just am not going to click on that. I can't.
I don't know if I want to listen to...
Should the NBAs be concerned about a small market NBA finals? This is from Mike Vorkanoff.
I don't know if I want to actually listen to any of my NBA podcasts this week, because they're going to be complaining about how difficult it is to fly from Indiana to OKC and back. Can't wait for that. There's not a lot of direct flights that way, Darren.
By the way, I said I wasn't going to click on it, and I've now clicked on it immediately. And here's the second paragraph of the story. The Pacers' win meant that two small market teams, Indianapolis is the 25th largest media market in the country, and Oklahoma City, number 47, would now face each other in the league's marquee event. Here came Tyrese Halliburton, Pascal Siakam, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and Jalen Williams as the four horsemen of the ratings apocalypse.
All right, it's at least good writing.
That is good writing. All right, I will admit, I judge this story by its headline, Mike. I don't know what your conclusion is. I'll read it after we're done with the podcast. Because again, it doesn't matter to anybody's life here, and this stuff just gets weaponized and used against the NBA. In ways that often we don't see in other sports.
All we're going to notice, Darren, is how good or bad the home crowds will be in the arena. And I've seen games at both of these, playoff games at both these. These fucking crowds are awesome. That's all we're going to notice. That's all we're going to care about. The crowds are awesome. The games are awesome. The players are awesome. And for us in San Diego, that's all that matters.
Yeah, I'm trying to skip ahead to the bottom of the story, see if he says something. Yeah, I don't know. He's talking about selling ads and all this sort of shit that nobody should care about. The NBA is sold. I mean, its television deal is done. They got $100 billion coming in.
This is like when the Raptors were in the finals, and everyone's like, "Oh, well, the Toronto market doesn't count towards American TV ratings, so this is going to really hurt their ability to generate money off ad." And I'm like, why do I fucking care about that? That's a conversation for like Disney and ESPN and ABC. That's not a conversation for me, basketball fan. Let's talk about the basketball.
Yeah, I mean, maybe if you're in ad sales, if you're an ad buyer in television, this would appeal to you on some level. But all you need to do is turn on a television. Will you be entertained? I think the answer is going to be yes.
Yes.
That's all that matters. Will the Game 5 or Game 6 ad revenue sales have any impact on your life whatsoever? The answer is no.
No.
So what do you care? You don't have to go to Oklahoma City. You don't have to go to Indianapolis. You don't have to go to any of these places. Just get to stay home.
Will I.
Yeah. Anyway. All righty. Well, I guess that's a Monday. Thank you again to everybody. Appreciated. And we do thank you all for taking the time. This one's a free one on Monday, as we said a little bit earlier. If you're just new to Section 1904, the Monday weekend recap will be available to everybody. For better or for worse, you're entitled to chime in. But if you do want to subscribe and help support this podcast does need your support for it to continue. We're on a pretty good run here. I think I don't know how many weeks in a row that we've done a podcast or offered a podcast every single day, even including 15 days in Spain, but we're on a pretty good run here of 6 weeks, I think.
Yeah,
Monday
that
through
sounds
Friday.
about right.
Yeah. So if you want to subscribe to everything else that comes along with it, whether that's the front row seat, whether that's the access to the Discord channel, which John mentioned a little bit earlier, and plenty more things still lurking up ahead as we get our business up and running. Some announcements on that here over the next couple of weeks as well.
Yep.
Maybe some merch. You can certainly help us support this venture, and we do need it, and we appreciate it. And if this is what you're looking forward to day in, day out, thanks so much. We'll do it again on Tuesday.